Hello and welcome to Team Liquid's boss overview series for Manaforge Omega. I'm Eiya, and today I'll be breaking down the Dimensius encounter on Mythic difficulty. If this is your first time learning about Dimensius, we recommend that you begin with our normal and heroic guide linked below. Phase 1. After recent nerfs, Phase 1 is very similar to heroic with the removal of the 5th and 6th reverse gravity targets. The major difference from heroic is that you now need 6 excess mass holders to prevent being devoured and up to 4 excess mass holders to pull down the 2nd reverse gravity targets. This phase operates on a simple rotation of knockback, players drop dark matter puddles, antimatter spawns, and reverse gravity targets are chosen. On the second rotation, both sides will need to gate to the center of the platform for the second Devour cast after saving their side's reverse gravities. You will want to assign exact spread positions for every player during each dark matter cast on both sides. You will also want to assign players to pick up excess mass from dead adds. These adds can be any players, but note that we prefer healers to be holding on excess mass before the second reverse gravity targets are chosen, as it prevents them from being a valid target and allows them to heal into the Devour cast before both sides gate together. You should also have exact assignments for the very first set of 6 adds. Mages, Death Knights, and Evokers are excellent candidates for this set. With regards to speed, you would ideally have a time spiral for every knockback and a Windrush Totem or Stampeding Roar for every reverse gravity. Note that you will need to move toward the opposite group to hit every player with time spiral before the knockback resolves. If you are lacking dragons, you can skip the time spirals on knockback 1 and 3, which you do not cancel. Ideally, you would rescue your Holy Paladin, Resto Druid, and Priest on knockbacks 2 and 4, while every other spec in the raid uses some sort of knockback canceling effect. When it comes to the left and right group splits, you should consider several things: the amount of ranged, their ability to deal damage to the adds, and the amount of speeds. Ellie Shamans and Destro Warlocks do the most damage to the ranged adds, which are often the problem. Note that Ellie Shaman Chain Lightning can chain across from the boss to the other side's adds. In either case, once you have done your best to optimize the variables mentioned, you can usually overcome add damage issues with better play. Of course, the add damage will become less and less relevant as you gain gear and damage from your increased renown. When considering the damage intake of Phase 1, the dark matter into the antimatter spawning are the most dangerous events. Consider also committing large defensive abilities to Devour 2, as you are usually in the most danger before gating to the middle. Once you are all stacked, you should be relatively safe. Currently, you want to hold damage until just after the 4th antimatter of the encounter spawns, although we cannot say whether this will continue to be the case in the future. Phase 2. In both flights of Phase 2, there are 5 orbs which must be collected while you Dragon Ride. For Mythic, they have simply added 2 orbs adjacent to the orbs which exist in lower difficulties. Some of these orbs are quite difficult to fly into, and it's important to practice or at least appropriately research them. You should avoid assigning certain classes to collect orbs that need to get to the platform instantly, like Death Knight and Ellie Shaman. Once you land on the platform, you will want to position Artosian directly on the Void Warden wall add that you will want to kill. Then your Death Knights will grip the 3 adds not currently in your quadrant onto the boss, while a Druid or Evoker knocks the add that is in your quadrant into the stack. We recommend using a world marker to assist your tank in positioning Artosian before the add spawns. You will need to assign 2 AoE stuns to each Nullbinder stack on each platform. If you have Evokers, you can also assign them a Pressing Roar. It's important that all players are in the same quadrant because we will be baiting the rock in the same manner every time. Once we bait the rock and the adds are dead, we should move through to the other side and do the line formation for Inverse and Crushing Gravity. You should assign all players to spread positions inside the melee, ranged, and healer inverse gravities, as well as assigning static positions for those gravities. From left to right facing out of the platform, ranged, healer, melee is customary. It is also natural to have too many ranged for the ranged soak and to distribute the extra ranged into the healer and melee soaks. The simple rule is that if you are ranged and get inverse gravity, you must position the ranged soak. For speeds on both platforms, you will optimally have both a time spiral and a wind rush to cross for Extinction, a Stampeding Roar, a wind rush, and a time spiral for the winds, and a gate for the final cross into the last set of gravities. After the winds, you should position Artosian directly on the Void Warden you will want to kill and repeat the Nullbinder grips and the CCs. For 1 minute 30 and 3 minute cooldowns to come up for the burn, we will need the Extinction cast to resolve. Once the rock has been baited and all the adds are dead, all the players will gate and spread into triangle formation for the gravities. You should configure soak positions such that they are relatively the same as the line formation, and it is only the inverse gravity positions that are slightly different due to the terrain. Note that the area denial that is placed by Artosian's beams as well as Pargoth's circle is not overly scary, but you can mitigate the slow by jumping into it to reduce the amount of distance you have to travel while slowed. Healers should consider priority healing on beam targets on the first platform. Make sure that when placing beams before winds, you take a position where you can actually survive the knockback into those winds. If you are a slower spec like Paladin or Priest, this will make it easier for you to live. Upon landing on platform 2, you should move to bait the Star Shard orb spawns. You should use a world marker for both sets, and aim it on the left side of the Nullbinder spawning circle in that quadrant. It's important that melee take extra care to line up the bait, as they can throw the center point widely off due to their closeness to Pargoth. Once Pargoth begins his circle cast and the orbs have been baited, all non-soaking players should move to the right wall facing the middle. Your Death Knights will once again have to grip during this mechanic and take extra care not to get hit by the circle. We recommend a mage or a preservation evoker or other healer and a tank take the first Star Shard orbs, while shamans and mages take the second. Note that you can't take a Star Shard twice or you will wipe the raid instantly. Once you have completed these soaks, killed the adds, and baited the rock, you will cross and play the triangle formation. Then wins before playing that exact rotation of mechanics again, but this time you will gate to cross and go into line formation. You will want to delay killing Pargoth until the wind cast is locked in and only then kill him. Off heal and allow yourself to be pushed off the platform together to remain in range of healers as you fall. Note that once you kill Pargoth, the kill floor is removed entirely. Phase 3. In Phase 3, you will want to create a connection for players between line and triangle where they are in line and planet formation instead. Gravities 1, 4, and 5 will be line formation, while 2 and 3 will be planet formation. For Gravity 1, all players will stack between planets 2 and 3 to create a good fall-off distance from the exploding planets post-Devour 1, before being pulled toward 1 by the first tank mechanic. At this point, the healer inverse gravity should plant, while the melee move right and ranged move left to create separation, allowing players time to find their assignments before the mechanic resolves. These assignments should be relatively the same as on the platforms, with the point of referencing being the boss instead of the direction players are moving, looking off the platform. For gravities 2 and 3, players will find planet formation using stars 3 and 4 as anchor points. As players take the third ring, ranged players should find space slightly to the right of planet 3, and melee should find space slightly to the right of planet 4, while healers find the space in between 3 and 4 nearest the outside accretion disk. The active tank should find space on the outside of their room between planets 2 and 3 and actively move away from the group after the mechanic resolves. On Gravity 2, all players are free to fight the pull, while on Gravity 3, it is very important that you find your position and take your hands off the keyboard. This will prevent desync deaths and other issues of that nature. For Gravities 4 and 5, you will want to change assignments a small amount because even though they are the same as line positioning, due to the rotating nature of the planets, some of the soak area will be cut out and you will want to plan for this. By pre-placing the circle marker, you can have a designated stack spot post-Devour 2, which will serve to signify the center or healer soak for Gravity 4. For Gravity 5, you will need to identify the center soak by way of ping. For Devour assignments, you should assign your slowest players like Warlocks and Priests to the leftmost star or 1, and your most mobile players increasingly as you go from left to right. It is extremely important that players soaking in Star 3 move very quickly to the left, as the tank requires that space almost immediately after Devour ends. Players in Star 4 must rotate right around the boss to the safe spot, while all other players must rotate left facing the boss. Defensively, the first planets exploding into the first tank mechanic into Gravity 1 is one of the deadliest parts of the phase, and you will want to commit personals to this overlap of events. Outside of that, you will want to consider Gravity 5 and then 4, depending on what cooldowns your raid has assigned to both events. For tanks, that is a very difficult phase, primarily because you have to know where to be and when to be there, with very little room for error. The best guidance in this phase is to always be opposite of the group and moving away from them as they do rings. There are several ways to do the tank swaps, and there are a few things to take note of. For the first swap, consider whether your melee group is on the right or the left of the healer soak. If it is on the right, the active tank will need to quickly rotate around the boss counterclockwise to make room for the other tank to take aggro safely. If your melee soak is on the left, move only enough to avoid cleaving the melee players, as the off tank can quickly gain clearance moving clockwise and taunt. For the other swaps, the same dynamic is relevant each time, and you should make sure that your tanks have planned out exactly how to exchange aggro at every point during the phase they are meant to swap. Note that after Gravity 3, there is no need to taunt before the Devourer, as he performs only one melee each time, and the off tank can easily take aggro of the boss after that melee. After Gravity 4, the boss performs no melees for several seconds, making for an extremely easy tank swap where the new tank should move into position and taunt while the non-active tank should move clockwise back to the groups for rings. If the off tank moves the wrong way here, they can very easily die. At this point, the currently active tank, typically the Brewmaster, should retain aggro for the duration of the encounter, using port on rings 4 and tanking 2 to 3 stacks of the ring vuln on rings 5. Note that the tank positioning for the 4th and 5th tank mechanic is 2 star gaps away from the star gap occupied by the melee soak. The tank should be in that second gap. To make the phase and markers consistent, you should be placing 2 raid markers in phase 3 as shown. Skull will signify the center between planets 2 and 3 for the first Devourer, and Circle will signify the healer, center Enforced Gravity on Gravity 4, as well as the stack point for raid cooldowns post-Devourer 2. It is important that someone in your raid is vocally calling which direction to move for rings. Rings 4 and 5 are especially difficult, and you will want to take the first and second rings of each set as quickly as possible. For speeds in this phase, you will ideally have a Wind Rush totem for every ring set. Place it to move to the first ring, and move it as you take the first to regain the buff to move to the second. You will want to have speed to spread into both planet formation gravities, as well as Gravity 4 and 5 post-Devourer 2. You can add time spirals on rings 1, 3, 4, and 5. Overall, on this encounter, it's important to spend the time ironing out the details, as those are what you will spend the most time on as you progress this encounter. And that's it! Congrats on your progress on Manaforge Omega! We hope you found this overview helpful. If you have any questions, feedback, or comments, feel free to leave them below. Thanks so much for watching, best of luck on Dimensius, and we'll be back for our next guide series in Midnight. Bye!